You're travelling through the wilderness when you meet a hermit. He asks you to deliver a crucial message several kingdoms away. No worries, old man. Sure I can. Fast travel. You approach a monster's den and realise you came ill-equipped to face what's inside. Such a shame you came all this way, but on the other hand, you'll be back in 30 seconds. Fast travel. You beat the level, bury the boss, and emerge triumphant. And oh wait, you're in the wrong castle. Oh well, c'est la vie. Fast travel. Do a thing, fast travel. Do something else, fast travel. The whole concept is so ingrained in video games now. It's as though devs assume players find traversal boring, and given the chance, they'll skip the whole thing in a heartbeat. But one developer has railed against this mindset. Hideaki Itsuno, game director for Dragon's Dogma 2. Travel is boring, he asks. It's only an issue because your game is boring. And you know what? I agree with him. I think there's been so much focus on fast travelling around a map that it kind of defeats the purpose of an open world. So, let's have a look at fast travel as a concept, how it's got to the way it has, and introduce my 3 simple steps to make travelling in any game feel like a blast. Let's go! Dragon's Dogma released in 2012. Back then, fast travel was the norm. You'd find port crystals, which allowed you to drop a marker, and then use a consumable item, a fairy stone, to return there. Only 10 of these could be placed, so you had to be smart about where you put them. It made sense to litter them in places connected to multiple key areas. The sequel builds further on this principle. The director throwing shade on other games isn't doing so without reason. For Dragon's Dogma 2, he's focused his team on building a world that's reactive and engaging, and all that falls flat if players just skip around the map. They're chucking these elements right into the fast travel system. For example, you can take an ox cart, which will take you from point A to point B. But to get there, it has to travel. It doesn't just disappear into space-time and pop out the other side. During these travels, it might get attacked by, I don't know, a rampaging griffin? You'll have to fight off the threat, or your travel entourage will be scattered to the winds, leaving you alone in the wilderness. So basically, fast travel isn't a done deal. It can easily get upended and throw you into the unexpected. This goes for exploring normally as well, as the route you take typically might change. Goblins may have destroyed a bridge, forcing you on a route you've never taken, and in doing so, taking you somewhere that you've never been before. This sounds great. You've got the ability to fast travel, but its success isn't guaranteed. You're being pushed to explore the world, and the devs are focused on making that exploration engaging. It's not that they hate fast traveling and don't want to include it at all. I mean, it's a feature that's respectful of your time, and it aids replayability and completionism. It's just that there's been a bit of an over-reliance in recent years, one that can take away from the joy and purpose of having a rich open world. To sum up that over-reliance, we just need to look at 2 primary offenders in making fast travel too front and centre in their games, which is funny, because they both used to strike the balance perfectly. The first is Ubisoft. Early Assassin's Creed games were a blast to explore. Movement was fluid, parkour was fun, and even when you went off the beaten track, there was always something to discover. Tearing over waves and singing sea shanties was, in my opinion, the defining feature of Black Flag. But lately, that's changed. Maps have gotten bigger. They're littered with thousands of side quests and collectibles and non-sequential points of interest that cause a sensory overload. It's easier to fast travel than to actually explore this overwhelming bunch of fetch quests and menial tasks. The other is Bethesda. Back in the day, they used to take an approach like Dragon's Dogma. You could quote-unquote fast travel in Morrowind by taking a slow lumbering stilt strider or boat, but most players just never did because the active exploring was fun. Oblivion brought in fast travel, and then Skyrim made it damn near essential. Fast forward to now, and you've got Starfield, in which good portions of the exploration is simply going through menus and selecting destinations. I feel like these developers have lost their way somewhat. Not by including fast travel, I've got no issue with it as a mechanic, but by expecting that that's what their players want to do. I know I'm not alone in wanting a more natural journey, without all the menus and cross-country wormholes. The way I see it, there are 3 ways to make travelling a big open world worthwhile. Make travel unexpected, make it atmospheric, and make it fun. Making travel unexpected is one of the key ways Dragon's Dogma 2 is going to make traversing its world worthwhile, and this alone could make me hesitant to rely on fast travel. That's because the unlikely can happen on your journey, taking you on routes you weren't anticipating, building stories around the simple act of getting from here to there. One game that did this really well was The Witcher 3. The world was varied, with a ton of activities that take you off the beaten path. It's also littered with small towns and villages that offer you new objectives. You may set out with the intention of doing a quest, but en route, you might find a monster's den that needs destroying. That'll lead you to pick up some ingredients for your potions, then onto a contract that you might as well cover while you're there. Then you come across a small town, and what do you know? Someone wants a round of Gwent. You set out to complete a quest, but now you're off in a tavern playing cards. This wasn't the route you planned to take, but one that was captivating enough to lead you there anyway. These little choose-your-own adventures don't happen if you can immediately travel to your destination. And honestly, when playing the game, I used fast travel sparingly, and only when I knew it was taking me to an area I'd already scoured and cleared. So that's making travel work by making it unexpected. The next way is simpler, but also much harder. Make travel atmospheric. Now this sounds easy on paper, but in reality, there's only a few games that have actually nailed this. Yet, this can have such an immense impact if you can get it right. For me, 2 games really drew me in and made me want to travel the world just for the sheer beauty of it all. Ghost of Tsushima and Red Dead Redemption 2. These are both celebrated and critically acclaimed titles, and their open world is front and center. It's as simple as make your world beautiful. But that involves creating landscapes that imprint a sense of scale, implementing sound design to make your surroundings alive, creating AI that makes animals behave realistically, and lighting that makes the whole lot feel vivid and striking. The music has to make you feel like you're starring in a movie, and the writing adds significance to every little detail. Both games have fast travel systems, but I barely touched them because I didn't want to be robbed of the experience of hopping on my horse and taking the world in. Granted, these are both massive games. You can't be expecting the same results from indie or AA developers, but there is a fail-safe way to make travel in your game worthwhile. And it's been deployed in all manner of ways, by all manner of games. And it's remarkably simple in principle. Make travel fun. Usually you fast travel somewhere because you want to get to the good stuff. You want to explore a dungeon, do an activity, or simply get into a fight. But what if the act of getting there is actually the most fun bit of the whole thing? What if the fundamental joy of movement is what gets players engaged with the world? Take Marvel's Spider-Man. The map is immense and would be a slog to travel around for any normal human, but not for a spider person. There's clearly a huge amount of care that's gone into making the web swinging feel fluid and engaging, but all that hard work results in movement that's an absolute joy, almost to the point where you don't want to reach your destination at all. You just want to keep going, because the traversal is one of the most thrilling parts of the game. So many games have inbuilt mechanics which make traversing maps a pleasure. Be that Just Cause, Prototype, Breath of the Wild, or even recently, Enshrouded. Each makes getting across their maps an absolute blast, while also still engaging with the world around them. And Hideaki Itsuno's words ring true here. Travel is boring? No. Travel can be a blast. It can be the best part of your game. The further we get into devs using fast travel as a central feature, the further we move away from games that make travel such a delight. There's this expectation that players will want to skip the process wherever they can, but that's just simply not true. If it was, then what would be the point of making an open world at all? You might as well just develop a linear series of levels. And there's plenty of open world games where that element feels completely pointless. Looking at you, LA Noire. In all the games I've mentioned, I loved going across the map and seeing the world. And I know I'm not alone. The fact that there is a whole genre called walking simulators should be testament that people like being on the ground and getting stuck into their surroundings. Now, sometimes games are developed around fast travel. It's their DNA, and it's part of their core gameplay loop. Long before Bethesda introduced map fast travel in Oblivion, it featured as a core gameplay function of Daggerfall. But it had to, because the map was 160,000 square kilometers. That's the size of Denmark, Slovakia, Switzerland, and Belgium combined, in case you were wondering. Sometimes fast travel is needed, or else a game doesn't work. But for many other cases, I think it's worth offering an alternative that is rewarding to the player. Bigger doesn't always mean better, if it means you can't naturally travel an open world. Drop down on the quantity and increase the quality. And I'm not saying abolish all fast travel, I'm not a masochist. It definitely has its advantages. I like my time being respected, and I don't want to spend hours of my life walking because I forgot to pick up a piece of paper across town.
No, we've gone too far.
It's a balancing act between quality of life and rewarding gameplay. There's a system in place that you can use, but if you want the full experience, Get out there and make your own route. And that seems to be what Dragon's Dogma 2 is striking. When the director calls out boring games, it's not so much needless shade, as it is him saying that games have lost their way somewhat. None of these titles are forcing you to play a certain way, but when players choose to ignore the fast travel system and chart their own course, that's a sign that the world that has been created is engaging, interesting, and fun to move through. A world that Hideaki Itsuno would probably be proud of. And these are just a few examples of games that have made the act of travelling unexpected, atmospheric, or just plain fun. Now, I want you to help me make my case in the comments section. Give me your examples of games that have had fast travel systems, but you were more compelled to travel the world without them. I can't wait to see them.